Alright, so welcome back to episode 4 of Movie Reviews. Very original title with your hosts, Nate Popeil and John Horn. It's a little bit early in the morning, I'm a bit sleepy, you're going to have to excuse me, as well as the fact that we do not have the Noster with us this time to provide us with that extra boost of insane energy like he does.
Oh yeah,
we'll have to manage somehow.
He was able to watch 2/3 of the movie there with us, so.
He was, yeah. He's got a baseball camp this morning. It's a whole thing. He is here in spirit, although I just watched him leave physically. He's like, I'm out of here, y'all. Peace.
Oh yeah.
So we watched Downfall this time. In the background, you can see the little DVD montage going on about this. And if you don't know, this is a foreign language German film about the final weeks before Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his bunker. And there have been countless movies made about World War II from a variety of perspectives that range from grounded and realistic to bizarre and unnatural, with this one being one of the coolest perspectives you could possibly take, I think, for a movie. Now, don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. I'm not a Nazi. I just think I think it's extremely interesting to view the war from the perpetrator's perspective, and to really, this movie really. Well, I'll save this for the theme section, but I really think that this movie, shows how thin the line is between fanaticism and heroism. And that's an interesting topic that we can kind of
touch on
dive into. But
anyway,
yeah.
So this movie was directed by a German director named Oliver Hirschspiegel. It was written
You're
by...
not pronouncing right. It's
Hirschspiegel. And then it was written by, I don't remember if I'm saying this right, Bernd Eichinger, who also produced it on his own. So he must have been really into this period of history.
And then who played Hitler? Hugo.
And then it stars Hitler as it stars Bruno Ganz as Hitler, and he's a fairly well-known Swiss actor. He's not German; he's Swiss. But anyway, he was obviously cast here to play the German dictator.
Which actually, fun fact, I say this for the history section a little bit too, but Hitler was not German.
Okay. Yeah, he was. Oh yes,
he was Austrian.
Yes. So it doesn't. It's actually not that weird to have a non-German.
Not that weird. No.
Yeah. Anyway, but and so yeah, so it has very good production quality, and we can talk about that later in the review. Anyway, I'll give a little short synopsis, kind of what the movie's about. So it starts out, and it actually starts out with an interview of Hitler's last secretary, Traudl Junge. I think I'm saying that right. And she's just this interview, I think, was obviously conducted shortly before she died, because she's very old in the interview. And she just is talking about her final days in the bunker with Hitler. And then it transitions to 1942 in East Prussia at what was called the Wolfslayer, which was one of Hitler's bunker complexes. And obviously this is at a point in the war where it's still very much in the balance. And he's looking for a new secretary, and he has these 5 or 6 women come to kind of, audition, so to speak, to be his secretary, and he picks Traudl Junge. And then, and she's very idealistic, and she obviously views him as kind of a hero, and she's excited about the opportunity. But then, 2.5 years later, in April of 1945, on Hitler's birthday, the Russians have encircled the city and are beginning to shell the city. And as the movie progresses, it shows the situation of Berlin from a lot of different angles. It shows Hitler's kind of, utter kind of insanity at this point. He keeps on command. He thinks that they can still win the war. He kind of is commanding these imaginary battle units that don't really have the strength to wage a proper war, but he thinks they can. And throughout the movie, he has several scenes where he rages at his generals for not following his orders when they literally could not, because there were no more soldiers to fight. He would be ordering these units into battle, and they couldn't go into battle. They had no more ammunition and no more men to throw into the battle. And it also shows the perspective of there's a really cool perspective of the doctor, the bald-headed guy, and he after Hitler orders. Yeah. After Hitler puts into effect Clausewitz, or Operation Clausewitz, which I guess was to evacuate a lot of the medical personnel and burn a lot of the Nazi documents. This guy, his name eludes me because they all kind of run together.
Yeah.
But he's a bald-headed dude if you ever see the movie. And he convinces one of the SS officers to let him stay. And throughout the movie, he kind of helps out with the medical, helps out in the medical tents and the bunker. And anyway, none of these people are really admirable, but he's kind of an interesting perspective to follow throughout the movie. And eventually, the Russians continue to encircle the city, and you get a lot of glimpses of the actual Battle of Berlin, especially from the perspective of one of these Hitler Youth soldiers. I believe his name is Peter in the movie, and he's like a 10-year-old boy, and he's a fanatic as well, and he destroys a lot of tanks with his bazooka. And by the end of the movie, though, he does end up escaping with Charlie Junge, the secretary. Anyway, as the movie progresses on, eventually Hitler realizes that it's all over, and he's holed up in the Fuhrer bunker with his close confidants, and some of his closest friends he believes have betrayed him, such as Heinrich Himmler, who secretly negotiated peace with the Western Allies. However, some of his most faithful confidants do remain by his side, such as Goebbels, who was kind of the German propagandist during the war. He's the kind of the real creepy looking dude in the tan jacket. Anyway, and so all of these people commit suicide along with Hitler and his fiancée, who he eventually marries right before his death, Eva Braun, or Eva Hitler. And so after Hitler commits suicide, it's pretty much just a matter of hours before the Russians take control of the city entirely. And then it shows at the end the escape of Charlie Junge and the boy Peter. They escape from the city as the Russians kind of aren't looking for necessarily the women and the children. They want to kind of go after the men, and so they're able to kind of escape through the Russian lines. And then the movie concludes with the giving the fates of all the people in the movie who do not die during the runtime of the movie, which I found very interesting. It was cool to kind of know what happened to all these people. A lot of them were sentenced to death or prison during the Nuremberg trials. Some of them were executed days after the siege of Berlin. And some of them lived on into the 1990s and early 2000s, including Charlie Junge, who I believe said died in 2002. So it would have been a couple years before this movie came out. And it concludes also with another little interview with part of this interview with Charlie Junge, and she kind of talks about how she wishes she could have realized the evil that was present in the Nazi regime. So yeah, it's a very good movie.
That's it. And when was this movie made?
2004.
Wow. So for being, first of all, a foreign language film, because I don't know if we mentioned, but this movie is entirely in German.
Mm-hmm. Which is awesome.
For being a foreign language film and being made in 2004, the production quality of this movie is surprisingly high.
Oh yeah. Because usually there are a lot of foreign language films where the production